Hello again! It's been a while since I've done a DC video, but I've been building up references for more, I assure you. Today we'll be discussing Cassandra Cain, Batgirl, Black Bat, the Bat. But first, a thank you to my wonderful patrons for making these episodes possible. Links below. I was having trouble hitting on a singular unifying theme for this episode, so I'm doing a classic 3 commons misconception video, starting with Cass is Bruce's favourite child. Now, one can argue about whether Bruce even has a favourite or sees any of them as his children, because thanks to how long his history is and how varied the writers have been, that answer can range from no they aren't his kids to he loves them all very huggy much. Of course, if we're looking for purely textual evidence, I'd argue that his favourite is Dick by sheer volume of commentary, both from his own character and even others. But again, long history, and looking at this from the perspective of primarily Cass-centric comics, I can kind of see it. Bruce clearly sees a lot of himself in her, often treats her as his primary potential successor, and didn't cope well with the idea that there was a side of her that he couldn't understand or accept. But let's break that down a little more, starting with Bruce seeing a lot of himself in her. This one's complicated because it's rooted in how Batman perceives both himself and Cassandra, or more, how he doesn't perceive either of them. Because Bruce is incredibly hard on himself when he's not victim-blaming people, self-destructively so, and this is reflected in his treatment of Cassandra. He refuses to see the man behind the mask, and he refuses to see the girl behind Cassandra's. He expects perfection from both of them, and a total disconnect from basic humanity to achieve it. This also naturally plays into Cassandra's already massive issues with perfectionism, or to put it another way, her incredible commitment to excellence in every aspect of herself, which is heavily rooted in her desire to atone, to never fail, and extend mercy to others. They definitely have a bond, if a warped one, but it's not healthy, fair, or indicative of favoritism so much as feeding into one another's complexes. But given Bruce is the adult, he's definitely the one who should be able to realize and address this problem. The next one is something I myself have fallen into, namely Cassandra and sign language. The first assumption being Cass knowing sign language, which as far as I'm aware, she does not. The second being, could sign language be something she'd be more comfortable with than the spoken language? This one again makes sense on its face. Cass can read body language to the point of being able to predict people's actions and identify them on motion alone, and she can essentially memorize and utilize anything she sees. Surely then sign language would be much easier than spoken language, or written languages, both of which she took pains to familiarize herself with, before her brain was rewired by a psychic forcing her into a deathmatch with Shiva to get her old skills back at least. But that right there is what we need to zero in on, that Cass's brain needed to be rewired to stop thinking in terms of body and motion, because Cass is built different. She does not naturally think in any kind of language as her contemporaries understood it thanks to how Cain brought her up. Sign language is a language, with all of the grammar, vocabulary, syntax, and sentence structure that comes with it. It's a language that takes years of learning to understand and use effectively, just like any other language. Thus, it would be every bit as much of a challenge to instill the concept of sign language into herself because it still utilizes all the same parts of the brain as any other language. So yeah, the more you know. Third and finally, let's talk about this recurring critique that Cass being the best fighter makes her bad and or a boring character. I'll hit the first one easy. Many people making this complaint take issue with Cass being a better fighter than Batman, but don't take issue with Batman being functionally the best at everything. Batman's escape artist skills are compared to Mr. Miracle. That is bullshit. Cass showing him up in a fight is not bad writing. But let's tackle the second one, because it has some actual meat on the bone. Superhero comics are action-oriented. Fighting is common, so being the best fighter means Cass's victories are predetermined, right? And thus boring. Well, I'd note off the cuff that going into superhero comics, you generally know that the hero is going to win anyway. But more pointedly, the Bat is meant to be a detective. There should be more to these stories than find and punch one dude. There should be traps, ambushes, betrayals, surprises, elaborate strategies that avoid direct combat. It doesn't matter if Cass can beat the ever-loving crap out of Two-Face, any of them can do that. What matters is if she can stop his scheme at City Hall from going off. Plus, in recent years, Cass seems to have been jobbed a ton or otherwise constantly needs a bestie or sibling on call for all missions, as well as meekly accepts getting chewed at by Batman over fighting Shiva, someone she defeated without killing almost at the cost of her own life in previous incarnations. Seriously, Cass needs to reclaim her spot as the top martial artist before people start whining about her being OP. DC, fix this! Anyway, thanks for tuning in. If you want to support my work, please check out my Patreon or Ko-fi, where you can also commission 3D art. Thanks for stopping by.